Hello, Dave Tosch, Executive Director, Wenatchee Valley Senior Activity Center. I'm joined with Glen Kelly today, our reigning king of the Senior Center. I don't know how many of you are aware of this, but this is a long time tradition for the Senior Center to have a royalty. And Glen just reminded me that he's been reigning for a while now. Started out in 2018 for the Apple Blossom Parade, and him and Miriam did it again in 2019. And oh, by the way, we didn't get quite to the point of crowning a new king this year because we closed right about that time. And so, you know, Glen still got the crown. And so, Glen, tell us a little bit about your experience as the king of the Senior Center.
Well, probably the most exciting was, I think maybe going and visiting with the people for the parades that we did. We did East Wenatchee for the Classy Chassis and for the Big Apple Blossom parades, which were great, but also to visit and be with people in parades at Leavenworth and Cashmere, and representing the organization. Had a chance to talk at a number of business clubs here in town, Kiwanis and Lions and some of the others, and just telling them the story about the Senior Center and what it's the impact upon my wife and I and many others that we deal with.
So you're a long-time resident of the Valley, and I know you got quite an interesting history, but you've been involved in the music world a lot in the Valley. And, you know, you've got the Troubadours, and I know that right now you can't play up in Leavenworth. Typically, that's where you guys play a lot of your music. But so what are you doing right now that you can't get out and play much?
Well, it's been interesting, Dave. When everything shut down in March, I finally got to my bags and baskets and tubs of music that I've written through the years for many groups. I started organizing all of the music and then sat down at the computer again and writing arrangements, and I'm up to about 250 arrangements just within the last 3 years. And I write specifically for tuba quartets. I have a group in Leavenworth that plays nothing but German music called the Bavarian Brass, and then we have the local one, the Wenatchee Troubadours. And the Troubadours play all styles, and everything from big band to 50s and 60s and marches and Christian music and a lot of things. So I've been busy writing, and a lot of those, and 3 of those groups, of the third group that hasn't played this year at Leavenworth, called the Musicapelle, which means village band. So we've been aced out of there. And then the brass group called the Bavarian Brass Tubas haven't had any gigs as well in Leavenworth this year, so we've turned it into recording sessions. And for the first time in 20 years, we're finally getting some CDs done. We'll have 3 CDs finished by this spring, just with that group at Leavenworth. And then the local group, the Troubadours, which is a quartet of tubas, they'll be doing their first recording sometime in January. And again, because we haven't had outside gigs, we haven't had the distraction, so we practiced. And writing arrangements. I was just working on an arrangement last night on the computer and tweaking it a little bit more this morning. So for me, my activities have been a lot with music, more so in writing and playing in the last 6 months especially.
Yeah, I think that's a great story because, you know, people are trying to fill these voids that we have. We're definitely not doing a lot of the things we used to do, and so you've been able to make that up and spend your time doing things that you never could get to before.
Exactly, yeah.
So, you know, you've got a really good story. I love hearing that story about you and Miriam driving by the Senior Center one day after the post office moved out in this part of town. I'd like you to share that story with us. It's a great story. Go ahead.
Be happy to share that, Dave. So we have to thank the U.S. Post Office for making the big switch. We have had a P.O. box for years and years and years downtown, and then when they decided to downsize and save a little money, they bought a Chinese restaurant on Maple Street, and now it's our local post office. So when I started coming down Maple, for really one of the first times in my life, I would pass by this building on the left-hand side as I'm heading the post office. Finally talked to some people. I said, yeah, that's the senior center. And I'm thinking, seniors, that's where a lot of people live. They must have beds and everything for seniors to stay in. We're seniors, but we don't need to live there. But someone said, well, they have a gift shop in back and they take donations. And so we started dropping off donations. And for months and months, we would just do donations. Finally, I went in one day with Miriam and I said, Miriam, let's walk up and see what it's really like in the front part of this building. Expecting to find beds. Came up to the front, a smiling lady, Allison, I think, said hi and introduced herself. And I looked around the corner and the doors are open and it's a beautiful wood floor, no beds. And she said, no, we don't have beds here. We don't have seniors living here. I said, oh, but we do have meals. And she showed me the monthly meal schedule. And I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, boy, my wife has to put up with my cooking these days. Maybe we could spend some time and come for lunches because I know she'd have really a good meal. And so from that point on, we made the switch and we're now here and we're very happy, but we haven't been here since March because everything has been shut down. So I've had to put up with my own cooking, and my wife now lives at a rest home area here in town, and so she's having some nice meals prepared by other wonderful people. But yeah, so driving down Maple Street, we have to thank the U.S. Post Office.
Well, I guess it has been a blessing to have the post office in our vicinity. You know, the traffic on Maple Street has picked up a lot, and I was always kind of concerned about it. And now, of course, Winco is moving in. They're going to open up here soon. I worry about seniors on Maple now because of the big, you know, increase in traffic, you know, getting onto Wenatchee Avenue and all that. But we obviously benefited tremendously when the post office moved out here and you came with it. But I love hearing that story because, you know, so often around town, you know, I hear it, oh, you're at the senior center. How many residents do you have there? How many beds do you manage? How many, you know, and it's just, and you know what? I don't blame them. I think I would be in that same vein if I didn't know much about it. You see that word senior and everybody says, oh yeah. In fact, in the newspaper just recently when they had the outbreak over in the Soap Lake and Ephrata areas, the headline in the paper was senior centers have an outbreak. They didn't put in there.
Centers, oh.
There was nothing said in that original headline about assisted living or nursing homes or any of that, but that's what it was. So, you know, we get caught up in some stigmas there with that. But no, Glenn and Miriam have done just a tremendous job. You know, they're out there, they're ambassadors. They're out there in the community and talking to people and passing on the good word and sharing the stories. And I really appreciate what you've done over the past several years.
Well, thank you, Dave. It has been a delight to be able to share with so many people. My family is becoming much more involved just because of the monthly paper, which gives all kinds of details on how specific this particular Wenatchee Senior Center offers so much for the public as far as offerings when we're back on a normal schedule. Having visited a number of senior centers throughout the state, this one is fully packed with lots of activities. You've done a very good job of keeping things together and expanding the opportunities for people.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. I appreciate the positive comment. We always accept those.
Yeah, good.
I didn't even have to pay you off for that,
Nope.
so that's good. But, you know, we're sitting out here on a December day, still kind of early December, snow on the ground this morning, but that sun just peeked through as we were sitting here talking. And it just makes you feel really good about being in Wenatchee and having an organization and a facility like we have here with people like you getting involved. So,
well, thanks very much, Dave. It has been a delight, and continue more. And we're sort of laughing about this with family. We were elected in for year number 1, and then no one wanted number 2. And we're in year number 3 in the pandemic because there was no coronation for the new ones, and so I'm not sure. Maybe we'll be able to pass the crown on now to the real king and the tiara for the real queen coming up here in March and April.
I don't think we want to lose you, but we do have some good people coming behind you, so we're going to have to figure all that out. And hopefully there'll be an apple blossom this year where we can participate, and we got our fingers crossed that we're going to get back to normal here pretty soon. But in the meantime, people like you are out there finding other things to do, spending your time wisely, and not, holed up in your house and twiddling your thumbs and with nothing to do. So I think that's a great story. Yeah.
Thank you.
So thanks, Glenn, for spending a couple minutes with us today, and we enjoyed our hot chocolate, and now maybe the sun's going behind the clouds. It's time for us to move on, huh?
Time to move on here.
Okay. Thank you, Glenn.
Thanks, Dave.